All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is 12:10 and we're going to get started. Thank you for joining me today, Kathy Koloff from IT Radix. We're going to talk a little bit about this hybrid workplace and some of the technical and maybe not so technical challenges, as well as security challenges that we've seen over the past year. If you have any questions throughout, you can ask them in the chat, or if you want to ask it interactively, just raise your hand and we'll unmute your phone. And with that, I will get started. So obviously the pandemic has fundamentally changed the way most folks are doing business. And working hybrid is basically here to stay. And most businesses need to figure out what they're going to do to ensure that the physical, the digital, and the culture are all blended together so that they can continue to be productive, creative, and innovative in the future. And basically figuring out how to make this hybrid stuff work permanently. So with that, I'm going to jump to the next thing. So the first thing obviously is communications. Folks are getting inundated now with the various technologies that are out there and the methodologies to communicate. One of the things that I'm constantly amazed at, and some of the folks here at IT Radix have commented on it, is now if you call a business, it's 50-50 and maybe even less if you're actually going to get a person on the phone, because many businesses haven't necessarily thought through their phone service, their voice over IP, or basic phone service, and they're routing calls to individual employees' cell phones. They don't have the phone infrastructure in place. And so one of the things as a tip is, if you haven't already looked at some kind of hosted VoIP solution, voice over IP phone service, you can do that, and it makes switching back and forth from an office or working remotely seamless, and the person on the other end really has no idea where you are. And so it makes the hybrid environment really, really work. Today, obviously, we're using the video. There's a lot more video chat and things of that nature out there. The big one is that the email completely exploded. Everything from the amount of email, everyone is just inundated with even more email than they were before. Some of it's just how people are communicating, because maybe they're working late at night or they're working first thing in the morning, so they fire off an email. Whereas normally, if we had been going to an office, they would be having that communications during the normal business hours. The other thing that we're seeing is the amount of phishing emails that have come through has just exponentially increased. And so what you want to make sure is that you're educating your team on what a phishing email looks like, what to do if they're not sure, and things of that nature. And last but not least, people are just getting inundated with chats, instant messaging, text messages, so forth and so on. So one of the things that you really want to make sure you're doing is building in breaks throughout your day so that you can get a break from all this digital communications. But one of the things that also they've been studying is, during this pandemic and the shift where people are disparate, is that some of the innovation and the creativity in these disparate locations has actually diminished. So one of the challenges that's not necessarily a technology challenge or a security challenge that businesses are facing is how to ensure that their creativity, that their productivity, and their innovation inside of their organization continues to occur, even though everybody is working in a hybrid environment. The other thing that they've shown with some of the studies is that your tight-knit, your immediate colleagues are working better, but your close-knit networks, those are kind of falling apart, and not the communications is really going down. And that's part of what's driving that reduction in the innovation decrease. Okay. So one of the things that we're getting a lot more questions about is how to have effective meetings where some folks are in the room and some folks aren't. So obviously the main piece of advice is make sure you're designing for the folks that aren't in the room. We're seeing a lot of intelligent cameras being deployed. We actually have one here. It's a little owlie. It sits on the middle of the desk. It rotates around the room and follows the conversation. This is the image on the right is actually sort of a Microsoft depiction of what they think an effective meeting room should look like. You'll notice that they've got the Teams on the left. They've got the whiteboard, whiteboard is built into Teams, and you can easily share that and put that up on the screen. They've got the chat on the right. And then, of course, the down on the bottom, they've got sort of that together mode so that you can sort of simulate everybody being in the room. The other thing I would encourage you to take advantage of is some of these inclusive features. So if somebody has a hearing or other type of disability, turning on the live captions. They just launched live transcription in meetings. So what you can do inside of the meeting, you can turn on the live transcription. I love this feature so that if you're speaking, you don't have to worry about scribbling down all your notes anymore. It will transcribe live who is speaking. It actually designates who said what, and then it does a bang up job of translating the words into the audio into typed out text, which you can then download after the meeting and keep. Encourage you to use the interactive features in there, like raising your hand or the reactions that they have built in. Raising your hand and keeping an eye on it and looking for raising your hand in the middle of a meeting so that the folks that aren't in the room are able to engage in the conversation without necessarily having to cut in on people. I know yesterday I'm a little notorious for sort of butting in on conversations. The other person on the other end of the line was speaking. It was on a speakerphone, so there was no way for me to kind of insert myself into the conversation, and they were going on for a while. If I tried to raise my hand, but they were looking at it on a cell phone, super small, really hard to see. So as you're thinking about these meetings, you need to think about how they're interacting in terms of, you don't know what they have on their end in terms of what they're looking and how they're viewing things. And then of course to have the chat going so that you can chat during the middle of the meeting and things of that nature. Zoom supports this. There's all kinds of meeting platforms out there. Teams has all of these built into them as well. Many of our clients have Teams, and so I encourage you to check these things out. All right. The next thing is that does this look like you when you do come to the office, or maybe first thing in the morning? Is the frustration of this jumping back and forth from in the office to working remotely back and forth, all of a sudden you look like this monster? Is it bringing out this monster in you? One of the things that we're getting phone calls about is people trying to get up and working quickly. They come into the office, they want to sit down and get to work, but now they got to plug in all these cables and, get on the internal Wi-Fi, things of that nature. The technology, just the hooking up of things and getting connected and getting up and running quickly, whether they're at home or at work, has become a challenge for some users. Some users handle it just fine, others not. Ergonomics is another big one. I was looking at a meeting the other day. You could tell that a bunch of these folks are going to end up calling their chiropractor because they're looking down at the little teeny laptop monitor. You really need to get folks set up, whether they're at home or in the office, so that they're able to work ergonomically and comfortably. Because it will take the toll on folks. Again, this is not a technical challenge. This is not a security challenge, other than from a technology standpoint, making sure that you have some ability to set them up so that they could see their monitor and work on their keyboards and so forth without any issue. Sound has become an issue with the hybrid workforce because a lot of folks are moving to no longer using desk phones, and they're using earbuds and headsets. This one is a pretty high quality headset. It has noise canceling built in. So if somebody's talking around me in the room, I was actually playing music and holding my cell phone up to it earlier prior to the call, folks could barely hear it. So you want something that's going to cancel out that background noise. We're actually finding this to be a little bit of a problem for us here because some earbuds are more sensitive than others, and they're picking up the other conversations in the room around us. So investing in a good quality headset is a great thing from a technology standpoint. Back to that getting up, working quickly. Folks are working different hours now. They're working at night. They're working in the mornings, not necessarily able to just pick up the phone and call. They're having trouble getting logged in, things like VPN or their password resets. So there are technology solutions out there that can help with self-service password and things like that, but you want to make sure you've layered on the appropriate security features on top of that, like MFA with multi-factor authentication, things of that nature. And of course, we're always here if you want to call us. So many people sometimes have multiple machines. I'm one of those. I have a desktop that I use in the office, and then when I'm remote, I like to use my laptop. I prefer my big desktop in the office. And what I'm finding is that sometimes just something as simple as I scribbled a note on my desk, on a piece of paper on my desk. I left it behind at the desk and it's not at the house. So I would encourage you to take advantage of things like OneNote inside of Office 365 so that when you're taking notes, it's instantly synced up to the cloud. You can absolutely use the note taking inside of Teams. If you're in a meeting, a Teams meeting, you'll notice that it has a little option up there on the channel that says meeting notes. Take advantage of those online meeting notes, and I mentioned the transcription as well, just because those are cloud-based, so it doesn't matter physically where you are, you've always got that note with you. The last thing I wanted to mention a little bit about the going digital. One of the things that we are seeing is that people are printing less, but they still need to print. And so printing at home or printing from home to the office has become a challenge for some of our clients. There are technology solutions out there that can allow you to do that through VPN or some sort of internet-based printing. The other big one that I've seen is a lot of people, and because scanning is no longer convenient, not everybody has a scanner at home. A lot of them are taking pictures on their cell phones and using their cell phone as sort of a cheap scanner. I have some concerns about that because now you've got sensitive documents that you've potentially taken a photo of and it's on your cell phone. You don't know who's going to have access to that and those things. So coming up with some technology solutions that work in a hybrid environment from a scanning standpoint are some challenges that we're seeing clients facing. Let's see, next, zero trust. This is a big one from a security standpoint. So on the left is sort of the old model of how people worked. And we have some clients that have always been virtual, but the old model is that you were in the office and then you would build a little wall or a firewall around your network, and that was your perimeter, and it was relatively straightforward what you needed to protect. But now what we've done with this hybrid world is you just blow that wall up. The perimeter is gone. And so what you have to protect has expanded exponentially because it's not just the office anymore. It's now potentially the person's home network or wherever they're working remotely. So of course, we're looking at enhanced endpoint security solutions that we're rolling out to different clients, in particular that are a zero trust type of an approach, which means that you authorize only certain things to run. And if it's not on that list that's being authorized, then they have to request permission and access to do that. You want to manage every device that has access to any type of corporate resource. It could be a cell phone, it could be a tablet, it could be a workstation. And there are solutions, whether that you could put on cell phones or tablets to help manage and ensure that the security is, you want to draw a line between the person's personal information and the corporate information so that you're not inadvertently either breaking compliance or exposing potentially things like ransomware and things of that nature. Identity management has become a big thing as well, just making sure, because it's really hard to know. I mean, at this point, you may not have ever met that person, you may not know the voice. There are technology solutions that are coming out to help with managing your identity and the passwords. For example, there are single sign-on solutions so that you only have to log into one technology, and then it logs you into all the others so that there's less passwords. But on the flip side, you still have passwords that you have to keep track of. And we are strongly encouraging folks to move towards a cloud-based password management system so that no matter where they are, they have those passwords, but they're secure. With the people working from home, you want to make sure that they're checking periodically their home networks to make sure that they're buttoned up and secure. Don't let them leave, for example, their home routers and things of that equipment, the passwords to be the defaults that come out of the box. And in our experience, MFA is still one of the best ways to keep folks keep the bad guys out of whatever system is that they're trying to access, because you have to have the user ID, the password, and then that second level of authentication, which most commonly for most of our clients is a cell phone or some kind of a token device. The next bullet here about the least privilege. This is something that I also think we need to sort of change our mindset. Most business owners or businesses in our experience, they start out fairly freewheeling. They're up and running. They're moving quickly. They'll create a shared area that everybody has access to. And they really need to start thinking about how can we break up and sandbox the information so that only the people that need to see particular types of information are able to get in and have the appropriate permissions. The reason why you want to do this is, God forbid, somebody in your organization does get breached or has some sort of an incident. The breadth of what they're able to see is what is potentially could be exposed. So if you tighten down what they can see, your risk vector and what they can see goes down as well. I love the fact that we're very trusting individuals, but we need to flip that around and don't trust quite so much and work towards this least privilege. Let's see. And last not least, I just want to talk a little bit about monitoring and verifying. We are seeing, for compliance reasons, that more and more of our clients are being required to log and verify and revisit and go back and audit what's going on in their environment. And there are it used to be that there weren't a lot of solutions out there that were cost effective for the small to medium business space. That has changed during COVID. Those solutions are now coming out, and they are more cost effective and allow you to be compliant. So keep in mind, I think most businesses think, oh, it'll never happen to me. In my opinion, it's not if it's going to happen to you, but it's more of when it's going to happen to you. All right, so I'm going to pause here and see if there's any questions. But I went through this fairly fast, which is what we try to do here. But again, the focus is to get the technology and the security tightened up so that they're able to work effectively in this new hybrid world that I believe is here to stay. All right, any questions? We're good? All right, well, thank you so much. We are going to send out a survey. Would love some feedback on what you thought of this or other topics that you'd like to see in the future. Thanks again, Kathy from IT Radix. Have a good day.